Well, if there were doubts about Ding Liren's form for this match, I think he completely dispelled them today. This game was fantastic. He completely outplayed his young opponent in this very complex strategical game that we're going to analyze today. So game 1 started with e4, and Ding Liren played e6. He chooses the French. I love this choice. I absolutely love it. He's looking for a strategically complex game where his opponent can't just get by pure brute force calculation. And it's not that Gukesh can't play positional chess. That would be ridiculous. The guy is almost 2800. Of course he can, and he does it very well. But it's Ding's territory, definitely. In sharper positions where there's a lot to calculate, Gukesh will excel, definitely. But Ding's approach, I think we're going to see a lot of it in this match. So d4, d5, knight c3, and here Ding already shows his intentions. He doesn't play bishop before, he doesn't go for the Winauer, these very complex variations where sometimes black's queen side falls entirely after some queen g4. He doesn't want anything to do with that. He just plays knight f6. He's going to play a proper French setup, no problems. It is risky, of course. I mean, white in the French gets a lot of space advantage, and he can definitely play for the initiative. But black gets his own counterplay. He plays c5, obviously to undermine d4. And now the main move, and by far, is knight f3. Just accepting that he's going to get a piece on d4, and that's why he played f4. The f4 pawn defends e5 very well, so if at some point a knight lands on d4, it's actually a pretty good outpost. And the game normally proceeds with knight c6, bishop e3, and white's plan is to castle queenside, play queen d2, castle queenside. That's, yeah, the main line definitely, but Gukesh surprises early. He plays knight c2 instantly, showing that he's well prepared even for a variation that Ding barely played, and apparently it's a suggestion by Rapport that's helping him in the match, which is great news. So knight c6, and the idea is c3. Now this maneuver knight c2 has its problems too. Clearly the idea is to get his pawn structure completely solid there, keep the pawn chain intact, but it takes time and the knight gets in the way of the pieces. So now it's Ding's task to play very actively. He can't just sit and do just anything, because white will get everything he wants. He will get a rock solid, huge center, and he will eventually unravel his pieces and get a very dominating position. And Ding took forever here, making everyone nervous. He played a move that's not entirely new, a5, but that hasn't been played that much really. And it's a logical move because black needs to play on the queen side. He's expanding there, he will play a4. It wasn't the only alternative at all. I mean, queen b6 is a very normal move, followed by maybe f6, breaking not only the base of the pawn chain, but also the front of it. But a5 is a very fighting approach. I mean, he's just going for queenside expansion, and white played knight f3, then continues with a4, bishop e3, bishop e7, and now Gukesh plays g4. Again, very quickly, showing that all of this was preparation apparently, which is remarkable. I mean, it's quite a secondary option for Ding itself. Not only that, this a5, a4 idea is not necessarily the most popular, and still Gukesh was prepared. I mean, that's pretty impressive. And Ding, was burning a lot of time. He played queen a5, which is a move he took how much time? 14 minutes for it. But it's very interesting. For one thing, this a5, a4, followed by queen a5, not only happens in the French, this is very typical in the King's Indian defense. But here the idea is to take on d4 and not allowing white to take back with the pawn, because then the king will be attacked, so it's impossible to take back with the pawn. And white will have to take back with the piece, And then the e5 pawn will be a little less protected, and white will have a much harder time playing something like f5, for example, because e5 will be hanging. So this move put some concrete real problems. It wasn't the only one. There was also this h5, quite typical to break up white's pawn structure and not allow him to play f5 so easily. But the thing is, it's true that you're not winning control of f5 for a knight. Normally, if you could get a knight to f5, this would be much more appealing. And the game could continue g takes h, rook takes, knight g3, and white may have an initiative here, but it's still pretty complex really. So it must be playable. Black played queen a5, which is also very logical. And now there's a case for stepping out of the pin, but also you have to play the king to f2. Sometimes it happens in the French, but you have to face the pawn breaks with the rook maybe coming to f8. Gukesh just decided to play it solid, just play bishop g2. And finally he's taking some time, not a lot though. Dean goes a3 first, breaking white's pawn structure a little bit before taking on d4, which was the main idea. And now, Gukesh plays this good intermediate move. Black can't really sacrifice on b4 because he's not getting the bishop. After c takes b, bishop takes b4, white can just go back, and he defends the hanging bishop by just getting it out of there, and he keeps an extra piece. So b4 is good. Black has to go back. But still, with the pawn hanging on b4, he can't just take with the pawn. He still has to take with the piece, and he played knight e takes d4. And well, Dean got what he wanted. Now f5 is going to be really hard to play with the e5 pawn. Not as well protected, there's not a pawn on d4 anymore. And black has some concrete targets he can play against. Now he has semi-open file on a very weak pawn on c3. This pawn on a3 may become an asset. It can also become a weakness in the long run, but for now it looks very threatening where it is. And Dean plays knight b6. Excellent move, instantly going for the weak square on c4 that can't be controlled by any white pawn. That's the effect of pushing pawns. White castle, sorry. Knight c4, and Gukesh was clearly feeling uncomfortable here. Bishop f2, bishop d7, because now he started consuming a lot of time. If you look at Dean's clock, 36 minutes only, and the game was 2 hours for the first 40 moves. We are move 16, and he only has 36 minutes and 28 seconds. Gukesh still has an hour and 21 minutes, but he was visibly not enjoying himself anymore. It's very hard to define an attacking plan for white here. f5 is almost off the table due to the fact that e5 will be hanging. Black still has a shot at some h5. There are some weaknesses to worry about on the queen side. It's really hard to suggest something. Knight b5, we just go to d8 probably with the queen. So very, very hard to think about making progress here. And Gukesh does something reasonable. Queen e2, connecting the rooks, maybe intending rook a e1 followed by f5 now that we have enough defenders on the pawn e5. But Dean isn't going to give him the chance to get anything like that going. He takes on d4, and after knight takes d4, the knight looks pretty bad in concrete. After knight b2, weird looking move, but it's defended, and now white has to take care about c3, and pieces coming through c4. So this is not comfortable. I mean, these last few moves, Gukesh spent a lot of time, and they're very close now. He has only 41 minutes. Now you have to defend this pawn, but there's a problem. If you just go rook ac1, rook fc1, there's queen c4, which forces the queen trade. And if he plays queen e3, for example, he might not even take here. He might just go queen d3 and force the queen trade as it happened in the game. So Gukesh plays well. He plays queen e3, rook c8. Dean still insists on just ganging up on that poor pawn on c3. And now rook ac1. Bishop e1 was the right move, very tough to see, in which case black should revert to the plan of trying to undermine this pawn structure so f5 doesn't happen. Because if you play queen c4 here, the idea of bishop e1 is to allow the rook to come to f3, and there's not a chance to really play queen d3 anymore and exchange queens. The exchange of queens in this situation will be very favorable for Ding. And the reason is white's expansion in the center on the king side will be completely useless. Actually, you could say that Gukesh will be a little bit overextended and that he'll have to take care of some very tough to defend weaknesses, while black's position is completely compact, very, very solid, and he will suffer in an endgame here. But as it happened in the game, he didn't manage to solve this problem. He played rook ac1, queen c4, which might keep you guessing if this is the idea, or queen d3. But, well, alas, Gukesh doesn't get rook f3 to stop the queen entry on d3, and it's actually very hard to stop it because rook d1, any rook to d1 is also falling to knight takes d1. So yeah, very tough situation. The queens are coming off no matter what. And Gukesh plays a move that seems aggressive, but it's really weakening. This endgame is happening, and now e5 will be just an additional target. And as Ding will prove, this is, well, kind of unjustified activity. It won't be enough. So Ding doesn't go for the pawn, which would be very dangerous. He just goes queen d3 and sends this into a, I don't want to say endgame, maybe it's a queenless middle game. There are so many pieces still. Gukesh tried to keep the queens, which is understandable, definitely. But, well, it will be very tough after Ding's move, bishop g5. With tremendous activity. White is barely hanging. And this move I love. I was very impressed by rook c4. Because white's pieces are so badly coordinated that this threat is not actually that easy to meet. The idea is rook takes d4, which leaves the rook on c2 hanging. If bishop takes d4, we just take the rook and we won a piece. And at first, when I saw this move, I said, well, what about your queen? But bishop f1 is never coming. I mean, there's so many pieces in the way. The rook can't even get out from f1 in time. It's amazing how many problems this causes. So h4, bishop f4, queen b1, defending the rook as he can, c3 falls. And white is in huge trouble here. Rook takes c3, queen takes c3, f takes c6, and, well, this was very tough, really. The right move, according to the engine, was bishop takes c6. And you normally want to take with the pawn and keep the pawns together. The problem is that in some lines, you need this bishop to become active. For example, if knight e2, as it happened in the game now, which takes this bishop and opens up the position in a way that black has to be careful because his king is still there. After queen takes e5, knight takes e4, queen takes f4. Amazingly enough, there are good discovered attacks with this bishop. If you move the bishop, you attack the queen, but you don't really have, as white, a good place to do it. And after bishop c5, queen takes g4, the rook doesn't have the open file as we're going to see that happened in the game. And this bishop is holding everything together, and white's pawns are basically collapsing. And in the game it was different because Ding took with the pawn, and Gukesh gets some counterplay here. He was never better in the game, but this is a stretch where he might have made some kind of comeback and create complications for black. So the same line unfolds, and here I don't know what happened, but he played queen c2. And bishop c5 is very tempting. Maybe he got the move order wrong, because the idea is still, after queen takes g4, to play queen c2. Because queen f2 is coming. And there are some very nasty threats like queen f7 or even queen f8, rook takes f8, and rook takes f8 would be checkmate. Not that it will get to that, but well, you can get the gist of it. The king is in real trouble now, and let's say black gets the knight back to the center, which makes sense, covering some sensitive squares around. Queen f2, king d8. This is even the engine's line, but it's fine for black. It's actually even better for black, but this is giving Gukesh some definite counterplay here. I don't think Ding would have been so happy about this happening in the game. White has a lot of threats. Black can stop every threat, but it's shaky. He has a lot of extra pawns, that's true, but his king is still in an awkward situation. It was the only chance for white. The only chance. He played queen c2, and maybe he misjudged queen c4, which is what Ding played. And black didn't get to castle because of bishop c5, with a discovery attack on the queen, and if the queen moves, then it's the rook that falls, even with checkmate. So not great news for black there, but queen c4 is excellent. Again, it insists on the trade of queens, and it's giving black time to castle because white has to refuse. He's down how many pawns? 2 pawns, and 2 central pawns at that. And white's pawns are really overextended. I mean, these are all likely victims in the future. So queen d2, this makes a lot of sense, and it's probably what Gukesh saw, because now he's trying to get full control of the dark squares. Ding takes his opportunity and castles, of course, and now bishop d4. And Ding plays fantastic chess from here. I have to say that he calculated really well, which is a great sign. He gives absolutely no shot here. He plays knight d3, which takes this into a forced variation. For one thing, it's a logical move. We would like our knight to go back to the center and participate actively in the battle. Now he's attacking the bishop because the queen on d2 has been cut from its defense. But the main intention was after queen e3 to launch rook takes f1, which looks insane. After bishop takes f1, this pin looks very dangerous, but he had already counted on e5. Great move. If bishop takes d3, queen takes d4, we get all our desired exchanges and we win an easy endgame. And if bishop takes e5, there's a bailout check with queen takes g4 check. Fantastic idea, and it's not even the end of it. After bishop g2, kind of natural, though apparently white had to play something like bishop g3 to keep fighting, though he's dropping more and more pawns after knight takes b4. But after bishop g2, Ding puts an end to this with a fantastic maneuver. I really love this. Bishop f5, supporting the knight, and there's nothing to do against bishop e4. Bishop e4 is coming, the bishop on g2 is pinned, so it's essentially game over from here. After bishop g3, Ding played bishop e4, and well, Gukesh continued playing for a while, but there's really not much to do here. He's down 2 pawns, his king is more exposed than Ding's king. His pawns are really underprotected. They're very likely victims in the next few moves. After king h2, just h6, Ding, well, both of them really were in some time trouble. This is move 38, and Ding plays a move that changes nothing. This is very good technique because he's already very solid. Everything is well defended, so no need to do anything rash. He gets some extra squares for the king, and he gets closer to move 40. This is great technique. Bishop h3, queen d1, and it's black who's gonna threaten stuff, not white. These pieces are really keeping that queen on e3 prisoner, basically. So bishop d6, check, king g3, queen takes a2, Ding feels safe enough to even keep racking up pawns here. The a pawn is now a threat in itself. And after bishop e6 check, king h8, well, Gukesh noticed that he had nothing. He had to accept it and just resign in this position. amazing positional game by Ding Liren. He completely outplayed Gukesh here. He put a really nice stop to the attack immediately, and this is probably Ding's strategy. He's going to drag Gukesh in these type of positions where calculation is definitely not everything. You really have to know your you really have to know what the position is about. Gukesh does, of course, but if there's a type of position where Ding can have the upper hand, is in these strategically complex, not so clear-cut, calculation-prone positions. And one last detail I'm just noticing, Ding had to see this little trick. If queen takes e4, pawn takes, well, the queen is hanging, of course, not great, but there's always an intermediate move there. Queen f2 check, and if the king moves, the queen is gone. So well, I'm going to be making videos on this match, on the analysis of each of the games. I will see you tomorrow then for the second game, and I hope it's just as exciting as this first game. Thanks a lot for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe and leave a like. I will see you in tomorrow's game. Bye bye.